Picture this. It's January 1st, 2026. You're sitting at your kitchen table with a fresh notebook, a cup of coffee that's still hot, and a feeling in your chest that can only be described as pure, unfiltered hope. This is it. This is the year you finally get your money right. You're going to budget every dollar. You're going to crush that credit card debt. You're going to build an emergency fund. You write it all down with the kind of confidence that only exists on New Year's Day. Fast forward to February 14th, Valentine's Day. That notebook is buried under a pile of mail you haven't opened. The budget spreadsheet has 0 entries after January 9th. The credit card balance is actually higher than it was on January 1st. And that emergency fund? It funded exactly one emergency, which was you stress-eating takeout after realizing you were already behind on your goals. Sound familiar? Here's the thing nobody tells you about financial resolutions. They don't fail because you're lazy. They don't fail because you lack discipline. They fail because 92% of them are designed to fail from the moment you write them down. Let me say that again. 92%. That's not a typo. That's not me being dramatic. That's actual research from the University of Scranton tracking thousands of people over multiple years. Only 8% of people who make New Year's resolutions actually achieve them. And when you narrow it down to just financial goals, which are consistently ranked as the second most popular resolution category after health, the failure rate is even worse. We're talking about a system where failure isn't the exception, it's the default setting. Before we dive into why this happens and what makes 2026 different, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because if any part of what I just described felt a little too close to home, you're going to want to stick around for what comes next. This channel exists to translate the economy and money systems into language that actually makes sense, without the boring textbook nonsense or the toxic hustle culture garbage. So subscribe, drop a comment telling me what financial goal burned you the hardest last year, and let's get into the psychology of why everyone fails. So why does this happen? Why do we set these goals with such genuine intention, only to watch them crumble before we even file our taxes? The answer lies in something behavioral economists call the intention-action gap. Your brain is phenomenal at making plans. It loves the dopamine hit of imagining a better future. When you write down, save $5,000 this year, your brain releases the same feel-good chemicals as if you'd actually done it. You get the reward without doing the work. But here's where it gets messy. Your brain is absolutely terrible at executing those plans when they require sustained effort against immediate temptation. This isn't a character flaw. This is biology. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles long-term planning and impulse control, is constantly at war with your limbic system, which just wants comfort and pleasure right now. And guess which one wins when you're tired, stressed, or faced with an unexpected expense? The part that wants the dopamine hit today, not the part that cares about your future self. There's another problem, and this one is even more insidious. Most financial advice is built on the idea of willpower and motivation. Get motivated, stay disciplined, just try harder. But willpower is a finite resource. Scientists have proven this in study after study. It's called ego depletion. Every decision you make throughout the day, every temptation you resist, every impulse you override, it all drains from the same tank. By the time you get home from work after making 100 tiny decisions, your willpower tank is empty. That's why you order takeout instead of cooking. That's why you buy the thing you don't need. That's why the budget fails. You're trying to run a marathon on motivation alone, and motivation is the least reliable fuel source in human psychology. It's like trying to power your car with hope and good intentions. It works great until you actually try to drive somewhere. Here's what nobody tells you about the 8% who actually succeed with their resolutions. They're not more disciplined than you. They're not smarter. They're not superhuman. They've simply figured out something that the other 92% haven't. They don't rely on willpower. They build systems. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practice. Person A sets a goal to save $500 a month. Every month, they tell themselves they'll transfer the money after paying bills. Some months they remember, some months they don't. Some months there's not enough left over. At the end of the year, they've saved maybe $1,500 total, and they feel like failures. Person B sets up an automatic transfer for $500 that hits the day their paycheck deposits. They never see the money. They never decide whether to save it. The system decides for them. At the end of the year, they've saved $6,000, and they barely noticed it happening. Same income, same life circumstances, completely different outcomes. The only difference is that person B removed the decision entirely. This brings us to 2026 and why this year is actually different. Not because the calendar changed, not because you're more motivated this time, but because we're going to build you a system that doesn't require motivation at all. We're going to break down exactly what those 8% are doing that works, and we're going to do it in a way that accounts for the fact that you're human. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have unexpected expenses. You're going to be tempted. The system we're building together over the next 12 months is designed to work even when you don't feel like it. It's designed to work when you're tired. It's designed to work when life gets messy. Because here's the truth that most financial gurus won't tell you. Discipline is overrated. Motivation is unreliable. But systems are bulletproof. And by the time we're done here, you're going to have a system that makes debt elimination, savings, and financial stability feel inevitable instead of impossible. That's the difference. That's what makes 2026 different. Not hope, not willpower, but architecture. All right, so we've established that most financial resolutions fail because they rely on motivation instead of systems. Now let me show you the system that actually works. I'm calling it the 2026 Reset Framework, and it's built on one simple principle that goes against everything you've been taught about goal setting. Instead of one massive annual goal that you're supposed to magically achieve by December 31st, we're going to break this entire year into 4 distinct quarters, each with its own focus, its own metrics, and its own psychological reset point. This isn't just clever scheduling. This is behavioral applied to your bank account. And here's why it works when everything else fails. Think about how you feel on January 1st versus how you feel on July 15th. On New Year's Day, you've got that fresh start energy. Everything feels possible. But by mid-July, that annual resolution you set 6 months ago feels like ancient history. You've either already failed and given up, or you're white-knuckling your way through with diminishing motivation. The problem isn't you. The problem is that 12 months is too long for your brain to maintain focus on a single goal without some kind of structural milestone. Researchers who study habit formation have found that the sweet spot for sustained behavior change is around 90 days. Not a year, not a month, 90 days. It's long enough to build real momentum, but short enough that your brain can actually see the finish line. That's why we're dividing this year into 4 90-day sprints instead of one marathon. Here's how the quarters break down. Quarter 1, January through March, is your foundation phase. This is survival to stability mode. The only goal here is to stop the bleeding and create breathing room. You're going to find extra money, cut unnecessary expenses, and set up the basic infrastructure that makes everything else possible. Think of this as building the launch pad. You're not trying to reach the moon yet. You're just trying to create a stable platform that won't collapse under pressure. By the end of March, you should have $1,000 to $2,000 in a starter emergency fund, your minimum payments automated, and at least one new income stream started, even if it's only bringing in an extra $200 a month. These aren't aspirational numbers. These are the bare minimum checkpoints that signal you're ready for Phase 2. Quarter 2, April through June, is your system building phase. This is where most people would normally be losing steam on their New Year's resolution, but you're actually just getting started because you've got a fresh quarterly goal. Now that you've got breathing room from Quarter 1, we're going to build the automation that makes saving and debt payoff happen without willpower. You're going to set up account architecture that physically separates your money into different buckets. You're going to implement the debt snowball method with actual calculations, showing exactly when each debt disappears. You're going to automate savings increases that happen without you noticing. By the end of June, your system should be running so smoothly that you could theoretically ignore your finances for a month and still make progress. That's the test. If it requires constant attention and decision-making, it's not a system yet. It's still a goal. Quarter 3, July through September, is your acceleration phase. Here's where things get interesting. Your foundation is solid, your systems are automated. Now we're going to pour gasoline on the fire by dramatically increasing your income. This is where side hustles, freelancing, selling things you don't need, and temporary income sprints come into play. The beautiful thing about doing this in Quarter 3 instead of Quarter 1 is that you're not desperately scrambling for money while also trying to build habits. You're adding fuel to an engine that's already running smoothly. By the end of September, you should have increased your monthly income by at least 30% compared to January. And that extra money should be automatically flowing into debt payoff or savings without you having to think about it. This is the quarter where people typically see the most dramatic visual progress because everything you built in quarters 1 and 2 is now compounding. Quarter 4, October through December, is your breakthrough phase. This is where you stop thinking like someone in survival mode and start thinking like someone building wealth. The debt is either gone or clearly dying. The emergency fund is funded. The income is higher. Now we focus on the habits and mindset shifts that make this permanent instead of temporary. You're going to set end-of-year targets that go beyond just numbers. How does it feel to not check your bank account with anxiety? What does it mean to receive an unexpected bill and just pay it without panic? These psychological wins are actually more important than the dollar amounts because they signal that you've fundamentally changed your relationship with money. By December 31st, you should be planning 2027 from a position of stability rather than desperation. That's the ultimate measure of success. Now here's the genius of this quarterly structure that most people miss. Every 90 days you get a psychological reset. If Quarter 1 didn't go perfectly, you're not waiting until next January to start fresh. You've got a new quarter starting in April. This removes the all-or-nothing thinking that kills annual resolutions. You can have a terrible month in February, and it doesn't destroy the entire year. You just refocus for the next quarter. Behavioral economists call this temporal landmarks theory. Your brain treats the start of a new quarter the same way it treats New Year's Day. You get that fresh start feeling 4 times instead of once. And here's the really messed up part. The people who fail at annual goals usually quit by February and then spend 10 months feeling guilty. With quarterly goals, even if you completely bomb Quarter 1, you've only lost 3 months, not 12. The recovery time is built into the system. Over the next 3 chapters, we're going to dive deep into each phase with specific daily actions, real numbers, case studies, and the common traps that derail people at each stage. But I need you to understand something right now. This framework only works if you commit to the full 12 months. Not because you need a year to see results. You'll see results in Quarter 1, but because each quarter builds on the previous one. The foundation phase makes the system phase possible. The system phase makes the acceleration phase effective. The acceleration phase makes the breakthrough phase permanent. They're not 4 separate goals, they're 4 chapters of the same story. And by the time we get to Chapter 6 of this video, you're going to know exactly how to write your version of that story. So let's get into the details. Starting with Quarter 1, the foundation phase, where everything begins. Let's talk about January through March. This is the foundation phase, and I need you to understand something critical right from the start. This quarter is not about being perfect. It's not about following some complicated budget down to the penny. It's about doing 3 things and doing them consistently. Stop the financial bleeding. Create breathing room. Build the infrastructure for everything that comes next. That's it. If you accomplish those 3 objectives by March 31st, you're already ahead of 90% of people who started the year with financial goals. So let's break down exactly how this works day by day, dollar by dollar. First, let's talk about finding money you didn't know you had. I'm not talking about checking your couch cushions, although honestly, do that too. I'm talking about the systematic review of every single subscription, recurring charge, and automatic payment hitting your accounts. Grab your bank statements from the last 3 months. Yes, all 3 months, because some charges only hit quarterly. Go through every single line item and ask yourself one question. If I had to reauthorize this purchase today, would I? Not, is this a good deal, or might I use this someday? Would you today, with your current financial reality, choose to spend this money? Most people find between $150 and $300 per month in subscriptions they forgot about, stopped using, or kept out of guilt. That's $1,800 to $3,600 per year, just sitting there. Cancel them today. Not tomorrow. Today. The companies make cancellation annoying on purpose because they know most people won't follow through. Now let's talk about the big 3 expenses that actually matter: housing, transportation, and food. Everything else is noise. These 3 categories typically consume 60 to 75% of your income, which means these are where you have the most leverage. For housing, if you're renting, can you get a roommate for 3 months to generate $500 to $800 in extra monthly income? I know it's not ideal, but we're in foundation phase. This is temporary. If you own, can you rent out a parking space, a storage area, or list a room on short-term rental platforms for peak months? For transportation, can you sell a car that's costing you $400 per month in payments and insurance and buy a $3,000 used car with cash? That's $4,800 per year back in your pocket immediately. For food, can you cut restaurant and delivery spending by 75% for 90 days? Notice I didn't say eliminate it. 75%. That's still letting yourself eat out once a week. These moves feel extreme because they are, but they're also temporary, and they're designed to create the maximum financial breathing room in the minimum amount of time. Let me show you what this looks like with real numbers. Meet Sarah. She makes $45,000 per year, which is about $3,750 monthly after taxes. In January, her life looked like this: rent $1,200, car payment and insurance $550, groceries and eating out $600, subscriptions and entertainment $200, utilities $150, minimum debt payments $400, phone $100, miscellaneous $500. That's $3,700. Leaving her with $50 per month for savings or emergencies. Basically nothing. After applying foundation phase tactics, her March numbers looked like this: rent $900 because she got a roommate, car payment $0 because she sold the financed car and bought a beater, insurance dropped to $100, groceries $300 with meal planning, eating out $50, subscriptions $40 after canceling everything except 2 services, utilities $100, debt payments $400. Phone $60 after switching to a budget carrier, miscellaneous $200. Her new total is $2,150. That means she went from $50 per month in breathing room to $1,600 in 90 days. Same income, completely different financial reality. But here's where most people get stuck. They create breathing room, and then they just let it sit in their checking account where it evaporates on random purchases. This is where the infrastructure piece becomes critical. On day 1 of this quarter, you need to open 2 new accounts. A high-yield savings account for your emergency fund that's at a completely different bank from your checking account. Making it slightly annoying to access is a feature, not a bug. And a second checking account at your main bank that becomes your bills-only account. Here's how this works. Your paycheck hits your main checking account. Immediately, you transfer your total monthly bills amount to the bills account. Everything that's left in the main account is yours to spend guilt-free. This simple separation eliminates the anxiety of, can I afford this? Because if the money is in your spending account, the answer is automatically yes. If it's not there, the answer is automatically no. No math, no willpower, no decision fatigue. Now let's talk about generating new income. Because cutting expenses only gets you so far. You need money coming in from multiple directions. In quarter 1, you're not trying to build a sustainable business. You're trying to generate fast cash to build your emergency fund. Here are 5 strategies that can each generate $200 to $500 in the next 30 days. 1. Sell everything you haven't used in 6 months. Books, electronics, clothes, furniture, kitchen gadgets. Use marketplace apps and price to sell fast, not to get maximum value. 2. Offer services you already know how to do. Dog walking, yard work, moving help, Basic home repairs, tutoring kids in subjects you know. 3. Sign up for gig economy apps and commit to 10 hours per week for the full quarter. Food delivery, grocery shopping, task completion. 4. Negotiate a raise or additional hours at your current job by documenting your value and asking directly. 5. Offer a temporary skill to your network. If you can edit videos, design graphics, write copy, fix computers, clean houses, organize spaces, people will pay you. The goal isn't to find your passion. The goal is to generate $1,000 in extra income before March ends to jumpstart your emergency fund. By the end of quarter 1, your foundation should look like this. Expenses reduced by 20 to 30% through systematic cutting and temporary sacrifices. Account structure set up with bills separated from spending money. Emergency fund started with at least $1,000, preferably $2,000. One additional income stream generating at least $200 monthly, even if it's not sustainable long term. All minimum payments automated so you literally cannot forget them. And here's the most important part. You should feel different. Not rich, not successful, but different. You should feel like you can breathe. Like an unexpected $200 expense won't destroy your entire month. That feeling, that shift from constant anxiety to cautious stability, that's how you know the foundation is working. And that's what makes quarter 2 possible. Welcome to quarter 2. April through June. If you did the work in quarter 1, you should be entering this phase with breathing room, a starter emergency fund, and some reduced expenses. Now we're going to do something that feels counterintuitive. We're going to set up systems that make you forget about your money. Not in the irresponsible way where you ignore problems. In the architectural way where the right things happen automatically, and you never have to make a willpower-based decision again. This is where people either lock in permanent change or slide back into old patterns. The difference is automation. Let me show you exactly how to build a financial system that runs itself. First, let's talk about the debt snowball method, because this is where most people get the math wrong and then give up when they don't see fast enough progress. The debt snowball is simple in concept. List all your debts from smallest balance to largest. Ignore the interest rates completely and attack them in order while paying minimums on everything else. The psychological win of eliminating entire debts is more powerful than the mathematical optimization of highest interest first. Here's why this matters in quarter 2 specifically. You're going to calculate the exact month each debt disappears. Let's say you have 4 debts. Credit card 1 with $800 at minimum payment of $35. Credit card 2 with $2,500 at minimum $70. Medical bill with $1,200 at minimum $50. Car loan with $8,000 at minimum $280. Your total minimum payments are $435 per month, but you've got $1,600 in monthly breathing room from quarter 1. Let's dedicate $800 of that to debt destruction and keep the other $800 for building your full emergency fund. Watch what happens. Month 1 of quarter 2, which is April, you pay minimums on everything except credit card 1, which gets $835. That debt is gone by mid-April. Entire account closed. One win. May comes, and you take that $35 minimum payment that's now freed up and add it to the $800 you were already throwing at debt. Now you're paying $835 toward credit card 2 while maintaining minimums on the other 2 debts. Credit card 2 gets eliminated by July. Another minimum payment freed up. Now you've got $70 more per month in your debt attack fund. August hits, and you're throwing $905 at the medical bill while paying the car minimum. Medical bill dies in September. You're now throwing $1,155 per month at that car loan, which originally had a $280 minimum. That $8,000 car loan that would have taken years on minimum payments gets destroyed in 7 more months. By April of next year, you're completely debt-free except mortgage if you have one. This isn't magic. This is momentum mathematics. Each eliminated debt creates more ammunition for the next target. The system feeds itself. Now here's where automation comes in. Because if you're manually moving money around each month, you will eventually forget or procrastinate or make excuses. On April 1st, you're going to set up automatic transfers that happen the day after your paycheck hits. Transfer 1, $800 to Debt Attack. This money goes to a separate checking account that exists only to fund your debt snowball payments. Transfer 2, $400 to your emergency fund savings at the external bank. Transfer 3, $400 to a sinking funds account for irregular expenses like car maintenance, annual subscriptions, or holiday spending. These 3 automatic transfers happen before you see the money, before you can think about it, before you can convince yourself you need it for something else. What's left in your spending account is yours, to use however you want with zero guilt. The system has already taken care of future you. Present you can relax. Here's the account architecture you need to have in place by the end of April. Your main checking account where your paycheck lands. Your bills-only checking account from quarter 1 where fixed monthly expenses get paid automatically. Your debt destroyer checking account that feeds your snowball payments. Your emergency fund savings at an external bank earning interest. Your sinking fund savings for irregular but predictable expenses. And optionally, a fun money account for guilt-free spending on things that aren't necessities. This sounds complicated, but most banks let you open multiple accounts for free and nickname them. Once you set up the automatic transfers, you literally never touch most of these accounts. The money flows through them like water through pipes. You're not managing money anymore, you're managing the pipes. Let's talk about the biggest pitfall that destroys people in quarter 2. Lifestyle inflation. You've created breathing room. You've got money flowing automatically. You start to feel less stressed. And then your brain says, you know what? I've been so good. I deserve to treat myself. You upgrade your phone plan. You get premium subscriptions you cut in quarter 1. You start eating out more because you can afford it now. This is the trap. The breathing room you created wasn't for upgrading your lifestyle. It was for building the foundation of actual wealth. Here's the rule for quarter 2. Your spending level stays frozen at quarter 1 levels. You don't get to inflate your lifestyle until you're debt-free and have 6 months of expenses in emergency savings. That might feel harsh, but it's the difference between people who escape financial stress permanently and people who just have slightly nicer stress. There's another common mistake people make in this phase. They obsessively check their accounts. They watch every transaction. They micromanage every dollar. This defeats the entire purpose of automation. Once your system is set up and you've verified the first month's transfers went through correctly, you should be checking your accounts once per week maximum. The goal is to build a system so reliable that you can almost forget it exists. Your debt is getting destroyed automatically. Your savings are growing automatically. Your bills are paid automatically. You're freed up to focus on increasing income in quarter 3 instead of constantly managing the mechanics of money movement. This psychological shift from active management to passive oversight is what makes the system sustainable long-term. By the end of June, your system should be running so smoothly that you could explain it to a 12-year-old in 5 minutes. Money comes in. Automatic transfers happen immediately. Debt payments, savings deposits, and sinking fund contributions happen without decisions. What's left in your spending account is yours. That's the whole system. If it's more complicated than that, you've built it wrong. Simplicity is the feature that makes it bulletproof. And here's how you know quarter 2 was successful. You should have eliminated at least one full debt completely. Your emergency fund should be at $3,000 to $4,000 minimum. You should have at least 1 month's worth of irregular expenses funded in your sinking funds account. And most importantly, you should feel like the system is working for you instead of you working for the system. That feeling of automated momentum is what makes quarter 3 possible. Because now we're going to add fuel to an engine that's already running smoothly. We're now entering the second half of 2026. And if you've been following the framework, your financial life looks completely different than it did on January 1st. Your expenses are lean. Your systems are automated. Your debt is shrinking automatically every month. Now we're going to do something that changes the entire trajectory. We're going to dramatically increase your income. not through hoping for a raise or buying lottery tickets. Through systematic, intentional income expansion that compounds with the foundation you've already built. This is quarter 3, July through September, the acceleration phase, and then we'll roll directly into quarter 4, October through December, the breakthrough phase where everything crystallizes into permanent change. Let's start with the income expansion reality check. You cannot cut your way to wealth. You can cut your way to stability, which is what quarters 1 and 2 accomplished. But actual wealth, the kind that creates options and eliminates financial anxiety permanently, requires more money coming in. The beautiful thing about tackling income expansion in quarter 3 instead of quarter 1 is that you're not desperate anymore. You're not scrambling to cover bills. You're operating from a stable foundation, which means you can be strategic instead of frantic. You can choose income opportunities based on value and scalability instead of just grabbing whatever pays fastest. This psychological shift from survival mode to optimization mode is what separates people who briefly escape financial stress from people who build actual wealth. Here are 5 income expansion models you can implement in quarter 3, and you should pick at least 2 to run simultaneously. Model 1 is skilled freelancing. If you have any marketable skill, writing, design, coding, marketing, video editing, bookkeeping, you can sell it directly to clients or through freelance platforms. The goal is not to build a sustainable business yet. The goal is to generate an extra $800 to $1,500 per month for 3 months to accelerate your debt payoff and emergency fund. Model 2 is productized services. Take something you know how to do and package it into a repeatable offering with a fixed price. Resume reviews for $150. Social media audit and strategy for $300. Home organization systems for $400. The key is that it's the same deliverable every time, which means you get faster and more efficient with each client. Model 3 is the digital product sprint. Create one piece of digital content that solves a specific problem for a specific audience and sell it for $20 to $50. This could be a template, a guide, a course, a checklist system, a spreadsheet tool. You create it once in July, and it can generate passive income for months. Even if you only sell 2 per week at $30, that's $240 per month that requires 0 ongoing time investment. Model 4 is strategic overtime or shift picking. If your current job offers overtime, additional shifts, or seasonal peak opportunities, this is the quarter to maximize them. The difference between working overtime in quarter 3 versus quarter 1 is that now you have a system that automatically directs that extra income toward debt and savings, instead of it just evaporating into lifestyle expenses. Model 5 is the asset liquidation sprint. You already did the quick sell purge in quarter 1. Now go deeper. That hobby equipment you haven't touched in 2 years. The collectibles gathering dust, the extra furniture, the duplicate tools. The goal is to generate a one-time injection of $1,000 to $3,000 to make a massive debt payment or fully fund your emergency fund to 6 months of expenses. Now let's talk about time management, because the number one excuse people use to avoid income expansion is, "I don't have time." Here's the truth. You have time. You're spending it on things that don't generate money. The average person spends 3 hours per day on social media and streaming. I'm not saying eliminate it completely, I'm saying reallocate 90 minutes per day for 90 days. That's 10.5 hours per week. If you can generate $50 per hour with freelancing or productized services, that's $525 per week or $2,100 per month. For 90 days. That's $6,300 in extra income during quarter 3 alone. The question isn't whether you have time. The question is whether you're willing to temporarily trade entertainment time for financial acceleration time. This is a 3-month sprint, not a permanent lifestyle. But the results are permanent. As you move into quarter 4, October through December, the focus shifts from pure income acceleration to breakthrough thinking. By this point, you should have eliminated multiple debts completely. Your emergency fund should be at $5,000 to $8,000 minimum. Your income should be 25 to 40% higher than January. Now we need to talk about what happens next, Because this is where most people make a critical mistake. They hit their initial goals, they feel successful, and then they coast. They let the systems decay. They stop the side income. They inflate their lifestyle. And within 6 months, they're back where they started. The breakthrough phase is about making the changes permanent by shifting your identity and your targets. Here's what breakthrough looks like in practice. First, you set post-debt goals before you're debt-free. What happens the month after your last debt payment? If you've been throwing $1,000 per month at debt, where does that money go when there's no more debt? The answer should be investment accounts, retirement funding, or wealth-building vehicles, not lifestyle inflation. Second, you measure success by habits, not just numbers. Can you go a full week without checking your bank account anxiously? Can you handle an unexpected $400 expense without panic? Do you feel excited about money instead of stressed? These psychological wins signal permanent change. Third, you build identity-level habits. You're not someone trying to get out of debt. You're someone who doesn't do debt. You're not someone trying to save money. You're someone who automatically saves. This identity shift is what makes the behavior permanent instead of temporary. By December 31st, your end-of-year review should show transformation across multiple dimensions. Debt reduced by 60 to 80% or completely eliminated. Emergency fund at 6 months of expenses minimum. Income increased by 30 to 50% compared to January. Systems running automatically with minimal oversight. And most importantly, a fundamental shift in how you think about and relate to money. You're no longer in survival mode. You're in wealth-building mode. You're no longer reacting to financial emergencies. You're proactively creating financial opportunities. This isn't just about the numbers on your net worth statement. This is about the elimination of financial anxiety as a constant background noise in your life. That's the real breakthrough. That's what makes 2026 different from every other year you've tried and failed to fix your money. The system worked, the framework delivered, and now you're building from a position of strength instead of desperation. So here we are. We started this video talking about why 92% of financial resolutions fail by February, and now you have a complete 12-month blueprint that puts you in the 8% who actually succeed. Let's recap what we've covered, because the framework only works if you can see how all the pieces connect. Quarter 1 was about foundation, creating breathing room through expense reduction and quick income wins. Quarter 2 was about system building, automating everything so willpower becomes irrelevant. Quarter 3 was about acceleration, dramatically increasing income while your systems run on autopilot. Quarter 4 was about breakthrough, shifting from survival thinking to wealth-building identity. 4 quarters. 4 distinct phases. 1 continuous transformation. This isn't theory. This is the exact playbook that separates people who permanently escape financial stress from people who stay trapped in the cycle forever. Let me tell you what this looks like in real transformation stories, because numbers on a spreadsheet don't capture the full picture. Think about someone who started 2026 with $12,000 in credit card debt, 0 emergency savings, and constant anxiety every time their phone buzzed with a bank notification. By April, they've cut expenses enough to create $1,200 in monthly breathing room and built a $2,000 emergency fund. By July, they've eliminated 3 credit cards completely using the debt snowball, and their automation system is running so smoothly they barely think about money anymore. By October, they've increased their income by 35% through freelancing, and they're throwing $2,000 per month at the remaining debt. By December 31st, they're completely debt-free with $8,000 in emergency savings, and they're planning 2027 from a position of power, instead of panic. Same person, same income at the start, completely different financial reality at the end. The only difference is the system. Or consider someone making $80,000 per year who always felt like they should have money but somehow never did. In January, they discovered $400 in forgotten subscriptions and started the foundation phase. By March, they had $3,000 saved and had stopped the unconscious spending leak. In quarter 2, they set up the account architecture and watched their savings grow automatically while debt shrank automatically. Quarter 3, they launched a weekend consulting service that brought in an extra $1,500 per month. Quarter 4, they paid off their car loan 3 years early and fully funded 6 months of expenses in savings. The transformation wasn't just financial. They stopped feeling guilty about money. They stopped arguing with their partner about money. They stopped laying awake at night worrying about money. The dollar amounts matter, but the psychological freedom matters more. That's what we're really building here. Not just bigger bank accounts, actual peace of mind. Now let's talk about what happens next. Because December 31st, 2026 is not the finish line. It's the starting line for a completely different race. If you've followed this framework, you're entering 2027 debt-free or nearly debt-free, with a fully funded emergency fund, with automated systems that run themselves, with higher income than you started with, and with fundamentally different money habits. The question now is, what do you do with that foundation? This is where most financial content stops, but this is where the real wealth building begins. In 2027, you're going to take that $1,000 to $2,000 per month that was going to debt payoff and redirect it to investment accounts. You're going to maintain the lean expense structure from quarter 1 while keeping the elevated income from quarter 3, which means your savings rate explodes. You're going to start thinking about assets that generate passive income, instead of just trading time for money. Here's what sustainable freedom actually looks like, and this is important because most people have the wrong mental model. Financial freedom is not having $1 million in the bank. Financial freedom is having systems so robust that money stress is eliminated from your daily experience. It's waking up and not immediately checking your account balance with anxiety. It's receiving an unexpected bill and just paying it without cascading panic. It's making spending decisions based on value and preference instead of fear and scarcity. It's having options. That's the real measure of success. Can you quit a job you hate because you have 6 months of runway? Can you take an opportunity that pays less initially but has more long-term potential because you're not desperate for every paycheck? Can you help a family member in crisis because you have margin in your budget? These capabilities are worth more than any dollar amount because they represent actual freedom. I want to be very clear about something before we close. This framework works, but it only works if you work it. You can't skip quarter 1 and jump to quarter 3. You can't automate systems in quarter 2 if you haven't created breathing room in quarter 1. You can't accelerate income in quarter 3 if your foundation is shaky. The phases build on each other. They're sequential for a reason. And here's the other truth nobody wants to hear. This requires sacrifice. Temporary sacrifice. Quarter 1 is going to feel restrictive. Quarter 2 is going to require setup effort. Quarter 3 is going to require trading leisure time for income time. Quarter 4 is going to require fighting lifestyle inflation when you finally have breathing room. But the sacrifice is temporary. The results are permanent. You're trading 3 to 6 months of intentional discomfort for decades of financial peace. That's the deal. And it's the best deal you're ever going to get. So here's what I want you to do right now. If you're watching this in January 2026, you're perfectly positioned to start. If you're watching this later in the year, start with whatever quarter you're in and adjust the timeline. The framework works regardless of start date. Drop a comment telling me which quarter you're starting in and what your biggest financial stressor is right now. I'm going to be creating follow-up videos throughout 2026 doing quarterly check-ins, showing real progress from people following this system, and troubleshooting the common obstacles that come up in each phase. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss those updates. This isn't a one-video solution. This is an ongoing journey, and I'm going to be here for the whole thing. One final thought. The difference between 2026 and every other year you've tried to fix your money is this. You're not relying on motivation. You're not hoping for discipline. You're building systems that work even when you don't feel like it. You're creating architecture that makes the right things happen automatically. You're becoming someone who doesn't do debt, doesn't live paycheck to paycheck, and doesn't experience money as a constant source of anxiety. That transformation is possible. Not someday, Not in some distant future when circumstances are perfect. Right now, starting today. With the exact blueprint I just gave you, the only question left is whether you're going to implement it or just file it away as another piece of content you consumed and forgot. Choose implementation. Your future self will thank you.